Morning, everybody. I'm Paul Mulholland. I'm president of the Sheffield Historical Society, and I want to thank everybody for coming out today. We couldn't have asked for a better day for this. I was kind of anticipating snow and ice, but not to be. This is a great turnout, and this is kind of, in my mind, what the Historical Society is all about. We find people and events that maybe none of us knew about, and people like Kevin Larkin and people like him bring them to life and make Sheffield Sheffield. So I think it's a really wonderful idea that this has happened, and I thank Kevin and everybody else who's helped us with that. So our program today is obviously we are going to dedicate the road sign to the Barnard family, and we have a few distinguished guests here. Let's see if I can remember them all. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank first and foremost Kevin Larkin, who spearheaded this entire operation. And if you didn't get to see our Civil War exhibit that we had at the Dan Raymond House, it was extraordinary. And again, that was all Kevin's work as well. So, but Representative Smitty Pignatelli is with us today. Senator Paul Mark is with us today, and we are thrilled to have the superintendent of West Point, Lieutenant General Stephen Gillen, with us as well for part of the dedication ceremony. I don't know that many other small towns would have the opportunity to bring someone of that stature, or I think of that stature, to an event like this. And I think the other thing we have to keep in mind is what this is all about. We're here to honor all of those people, men and women, who gave their lives for us in so many wars: World War One, World War Two, Korea, even back to the Civil War. I mean, these are the people who we honor today, and let's not forget. Let's just take a minute and remember those people before we go any further. So, without further ado, our national anthem. Please stand. Please remain standing while we all say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So, and I was a little bit remiss in my opening remarks. We also have, which we're very fortunate to have, some members of the Barnard family with us today as well. So we'll hear from them probably a bit later on. But right now, I'd like to introduce Reverend Jill Graham to give us an invocation.
Neighbors from near and far, let us pray together. Ever-present God, in this 11th hour of this 11th day of yet another 11th month, we gather with humble and grateful hearts to honor those over these past almost 250 years who've put country and neighbor above self, who've strove to build and protect a strong and prosperous land, whose spirits and bodies bore and bear the scars of war. This day we honor all who've sought and who seek the common good, And on this day in particular, one individual rises up, Sheffield's native son, Brigadier General John Gross Barnard, whose brilliant mind and career brought to bear a multitude of vital initiatives and innovative resources that strengthened and pointed this country forward. As we gather to honor the past, may his memory and the highway we both dedicate and travel together become our inspiration, his sacrifice, our courage, his unfaltering spirit, a guide for us against the powers of tyranny, that we too may work for an enduring freedom. Amen. Please be seated.
Thank you, Jill. And now I'd like to ask Representative Smitty Pignatelli to come up with a few remarks.
Thank you, Paul. Good morning, everybody. Okay. Got to follow the TV guy. I always admire these folks who can sign language, and I hope that she signs more intelligently than I speak. But what a beautiful day here in Sheffield, and I was thinking about it on the way down, because it rained all night in Lenox, that meteorologists should consult with Paul O'Brien, because it either is always sunny in Sheffield, or he has some control of the weather. So what a gorgeous day, and what a special day. And I admire so much the great work that this Sheffield Historical Society does, not only to dig in to the town's history, but to discover not only the town's history, but history for America. General Barnard, what an amazing story. Can you imagine a 14-year-old today going off to West Point? I can't imagine that. Become a highly decorated Civil War general, and he was deaf. It's an amazing tribute to the community here of Sheffield that this young man was given an opportunity to do some incredible things. I'm very honored and humbled to be here today. I wish my dad was here. He would have loved this, because he loves Sheffield, and I think Sheffield's become my second home in many ways. And as my days in the legislature come to an end on New Year's Day, I would like to acknowledge Representative-elect Lee Davis, who's also here today. I think Lee will be a great asset to this district, and she'll never forget where Sheffield is, because otherwise it'll be after her. But Veterans Day and Memorial Day were my dad's favorite holidays outside of Christmas. Memorial Day, because of losing his best friend, who I'm named after, was killed in World War II. And Veterans Day to honor all the service and the sacrifice of people that came before us. I wear my replica World War II watch that I received many years ago, and I wear my dad's watch today as a reminder. And every day I wear my father's World War II dog tags as a constant reminder of my dad's service. And when I think about things, when I'm dealing with legislation, I kind of just rub my chest here. People say, "Are you having heartburn?" I said, "No, I'm just touching the dog tags, because what would my father think? And I think, what would Smitty, my namesake, say?" So these are memories that go on forever, and I kind of congratulate the town of Sheffield, Sheffield Historical, Paul Mulholland, Paul O'Brien, Aretha. You've done some amazing things, so congratulations. And at this point, it's my honor to, I also want to thank Francesca Hemming. Francesca Hemming is the District 1 Mass DOT director, and when Paul, Mark, and I filed a bill to dedicate this stretch of highway, we couldn't have done it without Francesca. So Francesca, thank you so much for all you've done for all of the Berkshires and all of Region 1. And I'm very proud to introduce a longtime colleague of mine. He spent 12 years in the House with me. Then he went to the dark side, went to the Senate, but we forgive him for that. But he's a tremendous asset, one of the hardest working colleagues I've ever had in my entire career. But State Senator Paul Mark is going to read a proclamation from the governor. Paul?
And just, whoops. Does this one work? Okay. This one doesn't. Before I say anything, can we just give one last round of applause for Smitty for his 22 years of service? Thank you. Yes, I'm Paul Mark. I'm the state senator for Sheffield and 56 other cities and towns in western Massachusetts, and it's my thank you. This guy loves me, and it's my great honor today to read a proclamation from Governor Healy recognizing Veterans Day. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts, a proclamation. Whereas, since the Commonwealth's earliest days, thousands of men and women have served our country in defense of freedom and liberty. And whereas on November 11th, 1918, after 4 years of conflict, the armistice was signed in the forest of Compiègne by the Allied nations and Germany, ending World War I, the war to end all wars. And whereas, since that day, every November, people from around the nation have gathered to honor our veterans. And whereas in November 2024, the world will commemorate the 106th anniversary of the armistice that ended the fighting in World War I at 11 a.m., November 11th, 1918, the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. And whereas there are approximately 300,000 veterans living in Massachusetts, and whereas in recognition of the sacrifices made by those who have served our great nation, Massachusetts remains committed to supporting its veteran community through the HERO Act, honoring, empowering, and recognizing our service members and veterans. And whereas today we are reminded of the great sacrifices and contributions our veterans have made to our country, and whereas we honor and salute those who served our country throughout the generations with honor, patriotism, and courage, and whereas it is appropriate that all Massachusetts residents remember the bravery of those who served their country so that their dedication and sacrifices serve as a reminder of the cost of our freedom. Now therefore I, Maura T. Healy, Governor of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, do hereby proclaim November 11th, 2024 to be Veterans Day, and urge all residents of the Commonwealth to take cognizance of this event and participate fittingly in its observance. Given at the Executive Chamber in Boston this 11th day of November in the year 2024, and of the independence of the United States of America, the 248th, by Her Excellency Maura T. Healy, Governor of the Commonwealth. I think it's really important that the people of Sheffield are taking the time to not just celebrate and remember those who have served as veterans in service to our military of the United States for nearly 250 years now. The first battles fought for this country were fought here on the soil of Massachusetts. That anniversary is right around the corner. Next year, the Battle of Lexington and Concord and the Battle of Bunker Hill, widely regarded as the first battle of the United States Army, will be commemorated here in Massachusetts as part of the 250th anniversary of the Revolution. And so when I think back to our first general, our first commander-in-chief, and our first president, George Washington, he said, and I'm paraphrasing, the ability of our nation to attract future men and women to serve our country in our military is going to be directly tied to how they perceive veterans have been treated. And so I think it's so important that in Massachusetts, we lead on serving those who have served, and that even in a town small and forgotten like Sheffield in the wonderful Berkshires, we make sure to take the time to celebrate and remember and be grateful to those who did serve us and who have made a difference in preserving this democracy, in preserving the world for democracy and freedom, and in guaranteeing our liberty every day. So I applaud all of you for undertaking this event and being here this morning. So thank you for that. And now it's my great honor to introduce Lieutenant General Stephen Gilland, commissioned into the United States Army upon graduation from the United States Military Academy in 1990. As an infantry officer, he served in a variety of tactical assignments in air assault, armor, mechanized infantry, ranger, and special operations units. He has served in the 24th Infantry Division, mechanized, the 2nd Infantry Division, mechanized, the 75th Ranger Regiment, the United States Army Special Operations Command, the 1st Cavalry Division, the 101st Airborne Division, Air Assault, the 2nd Infantry Division, ROK-US Combined Division, the 3 Armored Corps, and the United States Military Academy. Lieutenant General Gilland has commanded at multiple levels throughout his career, most recently as Commanding General of the 2nd ROK-US Combined Division in Korea. He has participated in numerous operational deployments to the Middle East, Africa, and Afghanistan. Prior to assuming duties as United States Military Academy's 61st Superintendent, he served as the Deputy Commanding General Maneuver of 3 Armored Corps, Fort Hood, known as Fort Cavazos since 2023, Texas. Lieutenant General Gilland holds a master's degree in military operational art and science from the Air Force Command and Staff College. His awards include the Distinguished Service Medal with 2 Oak Leaf Clusters, Defense Superior Service Medal, Legion of Merit with 2 Oak Leaf Clusters, Bronze Star Medal with 3 Oak Leaf Clusters, Defense Meritorious Service Medal, Meritorious Service Medal with Oak Leaf Cluster, Army Commendation Medal with 5 Oak Leaf Clusters, and the Army Commendation Medal with V device. He has earned the Combat Infantryman's Badge, Expert Infantryman's Badge, Ranger Tab, Master Parachutist Badge, Air Assault Badge, and the Military Free Fall Jump Master Badge. Lieutenant General Gilland has been happily married to his West Point classmate Betsy for more than 33 years. Team Gilland are the proud parents of 3 children. We are greatly honored by your presence, and I ask General Gilland to please join me and take over.
Thank you. Thanks. That brought me a full smile. All right. Yeah, that's awesome. Awesome. All right. Okay. Let's see here. I'm gonna move this one right here, sir. That way I can do my remarks at the same time. All right. Good morning, everyone. How are we doing? Great to be here. What a beautiful day. And I will tell you, the drive up here from the United States Military Academy as we made our way through not only from New York into Connecticut and then into Massachusetts. Just a wonderful drive. And I'll tell you, as we talk about veterans, all right, I can tell, we're a wonderful crowd and it's an absolute honor to be here. Senator Mark, sir, thank you for the wonderful comments. Representative Pignatelli, friends and members of the Barnard family. All right, I like the sweatshirt, ma'am. Absolutely. Residents of the town of Sheffield, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, and a salute to all of our veterans today on Veterans Day. I salute you. It's an honor. It is an honor to join you for today's dedication ceremony, celebrating the service and legacy of one of your hometown heroes and a distinguished leader of character from the West Point's long gray line, Brigadier General John Gross Barnard. I'd like to thank President Paul Milholland, Trustee Kevin Larkin, and the entire Sheffield Historical Society for inviting me to be part of today's dedication. And to our veterans here today, thank you for your service to our nation. I should point out that this is not the first road named after General Barnard. One of the roads on West Point is named Barnard Loop. But today, he gets an entire highway named in his honor, which I think is much more appropriate for a leader of his stature. I have the honor of serving as the 61st Superintendent of the United States Military Academy, which among other things means that there were 60 other people who had the job before me. So circling the walls of the office that I get to inhabit for my time there are the portraits of every superintendent who has led West Point across the 220 plus years of its history. Some are more well known than others in the pages of our nation's story, but all were entrusted with leading the institution responsible for developing leaders of character for the United States Army and our nation. We serve as the caretakers of the national treasure we call West Point. Being West Point's superintendent is a tremendous and humbling responsibility and privilege, one made much more humbling under the watchful eyes of those who have came before you. So imagine an office of which the pictures of every superintendent before you rings the upper wall. And believe me, wherever you look, it appears as each one of them is looking upon you. And they look upon you to make sure that you are making the right decision for our nation and for the United States Military Academy. Each one of those portraits with a story of honorable service and leadership, leaders like Braintree native Sylvanus Thayer, Douglas MacArthur, Maxwell Taylor, Andrew Goodpaster, and of course, John Gross Barnard. General Barnard's story of service is one spanning nearly half of a century, taking him from his home in the hills of the Berkshires to the banks of the Hudson River. as a 14-year-old cadet at the United States Military Academy. Think about that. Which one of you is 14 out here? Any of you? Yeah. You ready to come to the United States Military Academy? I bet you would be. All right. General Barnard graduated second in his class in 1833. So let's think about that. So at the age of 18, he graduated second in his class and was commissioned in the Army Corps of Engineers, like most top West Point graduates of that time. Throughout his career, he helped lead the construction and repair of many of the nation's coastal defenses and fortifications, from New England to the Gulf Coast to San Francisco. He served with distinction through 2 wars, namely the Mexican-American War and more than a decade later, the Civil War. He first served as the chief engineer for the Department of Washington and the Army of the Potomac, constructing the defenses around our nation's capital and its surrounding areas. Later, he served on General Ulysses S. Grant's staff as the chief engineer of the armies in the field, leading engineering efforts at the siege of Petersburg, through the Appomattox campaign, and the surrender of Lee's army of Northern Virginia, marking the end of years of bloody conflict. Barnard's leadership and expertise were crucial to the Union's victory. After the war, General Barnard continued to serve until his retirement in 1881. So think about that. 1833, he graduates, serves in the Army until 1881, 48 years. That's a heck of a career, isn't it? That's fantastic. In the years between the 2 wars, General Barnard would return to the banks of the Hudson, this time as West Point's 10th superintendent. Little is written or known of his 15 months leading West Point. We do know, however, that he oversaw the construction of the Academy's Riding Hall, the largest equestrian hall in the United States at the time, for only $22,000. If we could only build anything for $22,000 today, right? He also improved the quality of life for the cadets, authorizing them to play chess while in camp. I think that would be the equivalent of in the 19th century of allowing our new cadets today to have their phones with them in the field. And no, we are not about, you may be able to play chess, but you will not have your phone in the field. And of course, there are his accomplishments and contributions to the nation beyond the Army. His numerous writings on history, engineering, and scientific topics were among the most authoritative of his day, helping to promote the development of scientific literature. He also co-founded the National Academy of Sciences, an organization that promotes science for the public good. General Barnard's accomplishments in and out of the Army were many. As I reflect on his and the other photos that hang on the office wall, I'm reminded that their stories are shaped not just by the list of achievements or battles fought and won, but also by the lives they influenced, the lives they inspired along the way. Whether the soldiers they led in the field, or the cadets they helped shape and develop at West Point, or the people here of Sheffield that live in this tremendous community and travel these roads. As a superintendent, John Barnard undoubtedly inspired many cadets who would go on to serve and defend our nation in one of its most tumultuous periods. Some, like fellow Bay Stater Cyrus Comstock, would serve under Barnard or lead engineering efforts in their own right. Others would distinguish themselves in battle, like Union General Alexander Webb, who received the Medal of Honor for his gallantry at the Battle of Gettysburg. This is in addition to the countless Army engineers and soldiers who he led and inspired throughout his life and career. One of his aides during the war wrote, "I often saw evidence of the warm interest he took in the success of the many young officers serving under his orders and his cordial appreciation of the good work done by them." General John Barnard's legacy is one of professional excellence and devotion to duty, an exemplar of dedicated and selfless service. His are among the shoulders of the great leaders of our past upon which we stand today. And as we honor and recognize him on this Veterans Day in his hometown, we do so to share his story and help preserve the his legacy to inspire future generations. And I am deeply honored to be able to help share that story. To our veterans here today, as those who've worn the cloth of our nation, you too are exemplars of duty and service. And we encourage you also to share your own stories of service and sacrifice. We have a responsibility to share our stories to preserve our nation's legacy of service and to inspire those future generations. Thank you and enjoy this beautiful day. It's an honor to be here. All right, I don't want this. Thank you.
Thank you, General Gillen. That was quite inspiring. Now I'd like to ask Kevin Larkin, who again, as I said before, is really the backbone and the creator of this whole event, to come up and say a few words. But I also would like to thank, before I go on top of what Senator Marks said, I would like to personally thank Smitty for his 22 years of service in the legislature. He's become an integral member of the Sheffield Historical Society family, and I would like to personally welcome Representative-elect Lee Davis into that family. Hopefully she too will become a member of our family as well. So thank you both very much. And now Kevin Larkin.
General, I don't know how I can follow that. I really don't. I'll wing it the best I can. Thank you, ma'am, for coming, for the sign language, and thank you to the Mass DOT as well for making all this possible. It was the Mass DOT who designed, put up, and did everything with the signs. So thank you very much for that. I appreciate it very much. Couldn't have done it without you. Thank you all for coming today to honor Sheffield's General John G. Barnard as we dedicate a section of Route 7 from Barnard Park here north to the American Legion Hall. Before we begin, I would like to first and foremost thank the Sheffield Historical Society for providing me access to and helping with the research on this project. Additionally, I would like to thank Representative William Smitty Pignatelli and Senator Paul Mark, for without their assistance, this dedication ceremony would not be possible. As a sidebar, Smitty, we didn't tell you this, but Senator Mark and I are going to name a section of the turnpike after you. We don't know how far yet, but we're working on it. Probably the breakdown lane. As long as it doesn't lead to Fenway Park, it's okay. I had to add that. Finally, I want to thank each and every one of you that is here today, because in some way, shape, or form, you all helped with this project. You made it become a reality. Naming people is a difficult task, and if I were to do it today, I would inevitably forget somebody. But I do need to thank two of the most important men in my life. They taught me a lesson, the best lesson that I ever learned. My father, Francis, and my Uncle Dick. These two men taught me never, ever, under any circumstances, give up. Now, we come to the story of Brigadier General John G. Barnard. And hopefully this will help us all understand why we're here today. John Gross Barnard was born May 15th, 1815 in the town of Sheffield. For the first 12 years of his life, he went to school in Sheffield. And when he was not in school, he could be found hiking in the beautiful Berkshire Mountains that surround the town that he loves. When he was 13 years old, he went to live with and be tutored by his older brother, Frederick Augustus. In 1829, as the general said, General John Barnard enlisted in the United States Military Academy. Graduated in 1833. He was one of the youngest students ever to attend the academy. He graduated second in his class with the rank of lieutenant, second lieutenant. He went on to serve in various engineering posts in the continental United States and the shores of the Great Lakes. He would take a leave of absence from his military career around 1850 to pursue studies in European engineering techniques. In 1855, he would serve for 1 year as the superintendent of West Point, succeeding Robert E. Lee. He served in the Mexican-American War, later served in the American Civil War, where he was at the First Battle of Bull Run, the Peninsula Campaign, the Overland Campaign, the Siege of Petersburg, the capture of Fort Harrison, and the Battle of Hatcher's Run. He did not serve in combat, however, but due to his brilliance in the engineering field, Barnard was in charge of building fortifications, garrisons, and defense systems for the Army in the battles that they fought. During the course of his 40-year military career, Barnard authored over 90 books and articles on various engineering and military techniques. Included in these books are the defenses of New York Harbor and the nation's capital in Washington, D.C. It was John Gross Barnard who made Washington, D.C. safe for everybody. Barnard was a self-taught and curious scientist as well as mathematician who didn't have the advantage of encyclopedias, but did have other works to read and refer to, and he wasn't able to Google the subject he wrote about. That's just amazing. General Barnard was also at the Appomattox Courthouse for the surrender of General Robert E. Lee and the Confederate Army to General Ulysses S. Grant to end the Civil War. Just think for a moment how that must have been for General Barnard. He was there following the man that he succeeded at West Point in giving up. I can't imagine that. However, 1 week after the surrender, General Barnard, along with the United States, found themselves in great sorrow. General Barnard was a member of the Honor Guard that accompanied the body of President Abraham Lincoln from Washington, D.C. to Springfield, Illinois. General Barnard was also an accomplished composer, and he wrote the funeral march for that burial ceremony. After the Civil War, Barnard would serve in various capacities and on various boards with regards to the nation's defense system, including a permanent term on the Board of Engineers for fortifications of rivers and harbors. Barnard would successfully recast the approach to coastal defenses, which became necessary because wooden ships and muzzle-loading guns were becoming obsolete. He became involved in the improvements to the mouth of the Mississippi River and was also a prominent member of the United States Lighthouse Board from February 20th, 1870 until he retired in January of 1881. It was General John Gross Barnard that fostered the production of scientific works in the United States. It was the influence of Barnard that led David Van Nostrand to bring a group of young Army officers together, including William T. Sherman, George W. Collum, and Philip Sheridan, who would become well known in the historical and military arena, and later they would become friends of Barnard as well as fellow authors and editorial consultants. Among the other notable accomplishments during his career, General Barnard was an original member of the Aztec Club in 1847 and also the Military Order of the Loyal Legion of the United States. He was co-founder of the National Academy of Sciences, along with several other senior officers, the Army Corps of Engineers. Barnard would retire from the Army on January 2nd, 1881, and would die in a nursing facility in Detroit, Michigan, May 4th, 1882. His body was returned to Sheffield, where he was later buried in the Center Cemetery. This was a journey forged by inspiration, as there is one other thing that people should know about Brigadier General John Gross Barnard. That is this. Brigadier General John Gross Barnard was able to accomplish all that he accomplished, despite suffering from a hereditary disease that would leave him hard of hearing and eventually deaf. The author and theologian C.S. Lewis said,
Hardships often prepare ordinary people for extraordinary destiny, and that is the perfect description for General John Gross Barnard. I think all of us can learn a lesson from the life of General Barnard, and that lesson is that a hardship can only become a challenge if a person lets the hardship become one. General Barnard proved to all of us that when you put your mind to it, you can accomplish whatever you want. I would like to leave everyone with this question, one of the many I have had after almost 2 years of research on this great man. And that question is this: what would the history of John Gross Barnard and the United States be if General Barnard had not been deaf? I fully feel in my own mind, with all this that he accomplished, this man could have been President of the United States. I firmly believe that. Thank you.
Dismiss us, O God, in the power of memory, in the clarity of vision, and the courage to always stand against tyranny, and with the power of justice and truth. Send us down the road now in the power of peace. Amen.